Hi, folks. Before I get into the episode, I want to mention something a listener brought to my attention. The Canadian federal budget is being planned at the moment, and they are looking to cut prison library services. I believe that no matter what someone's done, they should be able to access books. There are lots of reasons why access to libraries is beneficial, not just for those who are incarcerated, but for society at large. I've linked to an article about the proposal in the show notes, which includes more detail about it and ways that you can share your opinion. Now back to the episode. Hello and welcome to Our Stories and Ourselves, a podcast about how our minds make stories and stories make us. My name is Kirsty, and in this show I talk about the stories we tell ourselves about the world, the stories we tell ourselves about history, and about how the way we think shapes these stories and shapes us. Today is going to be another Terry Pratchett episode, and I'm joined by Melody, and we're going to talk about Jingo. For some reason, books about wars in deserts seem to be catching our attention at the moment. So welcome to the show, Melody.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. This was, I want to say Jingo was my first Discworld book.
Oh, wow.
Got the dog-eared copy out of the local library. It was literally falling apart. I think missing some pages,
Oh, no.
so I missed some critical jokes, but I think I got the gist.
It's amazing what you can miss just with even a couple of pages. Like
I think it was the setup for Nobby's whole gender thing,
Mhm.
which is why it was very confused later on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yes, that would be very, very confusing. I had a slightly dodgy copy of The Fifth Elephant and just missed a couple of pages where Carrot does something fairly dramatic, and then suddenly I'm like, wait, what? How? Where? What?
I mean, that's almost appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
because by the time Carrot shows up dramatically in the Vimes side of that story, it's a bit of a Deus Ex Machina, so.
A little bit, but
It just added to your cinematic experience of your book.
yeah. So, for anyone who's not familiar with Jingo, how would you summarize it? Putting you on the spot.
Jingo is what would happen if you did a satire of Seven Pillars of Wisdom and also made it about the Falklands War. And then, yeah, I think that's the best. That's the best short summary I can think of off the top of my head.
I think that's quite a neat way to put it. It starts off when an island emerges in the middle of the Circle Sea, exactly halfway between Ankh-Morpork and Clatch, and suddenly it becomes a source of conflict because both countries think of it as being of tactical advantage, mostly in case they decide to invade the other country, even though they've got along fine for a long time.
Yeah.
Is any of this sounding familiar?
Oh, yeah. I want to say Vimes has the introspection about we're going to go to war over an island that's only useful if we're going to go to war.
Yep. That's a very Vimes thing to think. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, the term Jingo comes from an English oath. Not quite a swear word, but sort of.
Exclamation?
Exclamation, perfect. Which became associated with militaristic nationalism. And there was a song, We Don't Want to Fight, but by Jingo if we do. We've got the ships, we've got the men, we've got the money too. Which is promptly kind of spun on its head early on in the book.
Yeah, I the council meetings
Yeah.
scene is fantastic, especially because I think as as I picked up Discworld too young for it,
Hmm.
certainly, because I did not have a lot of the context, but I remember really understanding the sheer amount of times Vimes gets distracted by his own thoughts,
Yeah.
and a scene will pick up with time having passed outside of him thinking about things.
Yeah. But yeah, the council scene is just beautiful when Salachi goes, "Very well then," by Jingo alone. And then
Yes.
Vetinari comes back in with, "We don't want to fight." And Lord Salachi jumps in, "By Jingo, if we do, we'll show those." And then Vetinari cuts him off with, "We have no ships. We have no men. We have no money too." Which I think is just beautifully done.
Yeah, especially even the whole thing with taxes, the tax bit
Mm-hmm.
that they do in there is like,
Yeah.
wow, you're telling me that everyone's found a way to avoid paying their taxes?
And yet they still want to go to war.
Hmm.
And in fact, they want to go to war so much that they raise their own regiments, yet don't want to pay their taxes.
Yeah. The regiments thing is, I don't know, was especially alien to me,
Mm-hmm.
having always we've never had the tradition of that
Mm-hmm.
here. So it was something that I didn't. One of the things that I encountered with Discworld books was the cultural stretch,
Yeah.
where I didn't understand. It's like, oh, you're making a joke about this thing that is real.
Yeah.
This entire book is a great example of that. Because I remember getting to the end of it the first time and thinking, that's so silly. Nobody would ever do that.
Yeah.
And then, the second time through, a little older, it's like, this is silly because somebody would do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then learning about the Falklands War and going, oh, they actually did that.
Yeah.
And it keeps happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just thinking back to that beginning where with detritus describing, things that come in fours,
Mm-hmm.
forebodings.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first real bit of the concept of
Mm-hmm.
troll language we get too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
a translation problem, not so
Yeah.
much detritus doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. Every time I read it, I find new little nuances. I think, as with pretty much every Pratchett book. It's interesting. I have heard this book be criticised as one of Terry Pratchett's less insightful books.
I can see that.
Mhm.
It definitely doesn't have anything. I don't think it really has much big to say beyond this is all stupid. But
Mhm.
that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not insightful, but it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. I think interestingly the criticism of it from this person was that they found the Clatching characters a bit uncomfortable.
I can see that. Yeah, I think he doesn't quite manage to thread the needle of double bluff racism.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's definitely going for that, but maybe it does.
He only
Yeah.
he only really achieves it with Vimes. I guess you'd call Ahmed a counterfoil.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
only really achieves it there, and that's
Mhm.
because Ahmed is specifically doing it on purpose to fuck with
Yeah.
Vimes.
Yeah.
So it's everyone else. You can sort of see it's he's very much doing the with the Gorif family. They're just well, they just want to live, which
Yeah.
is a great message, but
Mhm.
it gets lost in the portrayal of them as being other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially in a city that also has trolls and gnomes and the undead.
Yeah,
And
I think part of that is that like he had previously written, a lot more, and therefore must have planned out a lot more detail in the what dwarves were up to
yeah.
and what trolls are kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, well, Clatch. This is the
Mm-hmm.
first time that really gets addressed.
Yeah. And I mean, I like the way Ahmed plays into it to fuck with Vimes. And I
Oh, absolutely.
do think that there are a few people who have not understood what he was trying to do there, and just sort of seen it, like not realized that he was fucking with Vimes and that he was exaggerating it on purpose and things like that. And then there's that sub line with Colin and Nobby investigating and finding like sand and clutching coins, and it's like Vimes is just looking at them going, are you kidding me? That obviously a plant, because no one is that stupid.
Yeah, like it. I don't know. I've thought about this because thinking about how everything gets blamed as being a false flag,
Mm.
even now.
Yeah.
Thinking about how like that gets used specifically to the advantage of Ahmed,
Mm-hmm.
and just the way he, oh, brilliant play, while like it's the right level of believability.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's hard, that like I don't see other, you would almost call the watch books detective novels,
Yeah.
maybe without the detective, because the point is that you're about as lost as Vimes is.
Yeah.
And so like it's fun even knowing where it's going, because every time I go through it, it's like, well, I can't picture, I personally can't picture myself as figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I get why this is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's one of the previous watch books where the victim literally figures it out before Vimes does.
Yes. Yeah, that does happen.
Oh, it's the previous one, Feet of Clay, yeah.
Yeah, Feet of Clay.
Um
I mean, it is Veterinary that figures out what's happened to him, which,
True.
he is portrayed as one of them.
True, but it's yeah, well, we can give that to Sir
Mhm.
Samuel, yes. Yeah, and this is, I'm trying to think, because this isn't the one that really, no, this one does have the whole class thing where he
Yes.
realizes that he can, or veterinary prompts him to
Mhm.
realize that he can raise a regiment.
Yeah, that I did find that bit particularly fun. That he's fuming about these lords raising regiments, and then he's like, "Wait a minute," Veterinary gives him a blank piece of paper that just says Sir Samuel Vimes, Knight. Yes, I know, and I hate it. And oh, hang on a second. Although it does kind of feel a little bit like that doesn't go anywhere other than to annoy
Yeah,
people.
it's mostly a plot device, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It works if you have the context of Vimes from the other books where this has been used to greater effect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, by itself, it's just like, this is where the plot goes next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mentioned that you've been reading another book, which is one I'm not. Okay, I'm familiar with, but haven't read.
Yeah. So this was prompted by other current events,
Mm-hmm.
but also just a general like, this has been on my, I really should read this, and I picked up a copy of Seven Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence, which I've seen the movie, even if I've never made it all the way through in one sitting, which is a challenge. But I decided to pick it up because we were talking about war in the desert, and what I like about it so far is it doesn't feel like Lawrence is really trying to talk himself up, at least not compared to like any other autobiography I've ever read. It's just like, here's these complicated things I faced. I'm not sure if I came across it right. And, like, this is also the inspiration for Dune. So I wanted to see where Frank Herbert had taken what he had taken from that, because there's a surprising amount, like just the whole aspect of Paul fitting in the just knowing how to wear his still suit, for example, is a thing taken from Lawrence. Though not exactly the same way, because Lawrence had been in doing archaeological digs in the region, so knew how to dress and for the desert.
Yeah.
But it's not just that, it's the overarching this is sort of the man who, he didn't invent modern guerrilla warfare, but he's the one who codified it into a formal practice, almost.
It's definitely one of the strong roots of how we talk about it, which is interesting, again, in the context of defensive wars and offensive wars. Because I think, there's a general consensus that wars in deserts are fought best by the people who live in those deserts. And
yes,
you'd think that would be obvious, but apparently it is not to people.
Well, yeah, this is, you can't drink your own Kool-Aid. You can't fall for your own propaganda. And there's, I think Lawrence is a great example of falling for your own propaganda, or at least the idea of him.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we have this superior training, we have the superior equipment, but it's never, well, what happens when we put that superior training and equipment in a place where somebody has spent the past, spent 20 years every day.
Yeah.
And we always seem to want to put more value in our guys being our guys. Which I can appreciate wanting to, but can't give them too much credit.
Yeah. And I think you just reminded me of a quote from another Pratchett book that we've spoken about offline, Small Gods, which is right at the end. So I guess spoiler alert for anyone reading it.
Yeah, Small Gods definitely needs spoiler alerts. It's just so well done.
It's done beautifully, but there's something that, I won't name who the character is to kind of preserve some stuff, but the quote starts, "You've come to wage war. This would not be a good idea." And, there's some conversation about, oh yeah, of course you don't think it's a good idea. We're going to attack you. And it's like, no. The quote continues, "You will probably defeat us, but not all of us. And then what will you do? Leave a garrison? Forever? And eventually, a new generation will retaliate. Why you did this won't mean anything to them. You'll be the oppressors. They'll fight. They might even win. And there'll be another war. And one day people will say, why didn't they sort it all out back then?" End quote. And I'm just like, yeah, that's the thing about attacking somewhere and going in as an external force, is rather than an internal force that knows the place and lives there.
Yeah, I think when I first read Small Gods, that statement made me realize just how angry I was about the state of war and our seeming,
Mm-hmm.
especially as an American, our willingness to just kind of do it
Yeah.
because we wanted stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time, my fairly limited understanding of things.
Yeah.
But even now, it still holds up because even if I understand, it's more complicated than just somebody wanted stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make it better. I just have a better frame of reference for understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I don't know, the cynical view that you can certainly take and has a certain amount of truth to it is, well, these people don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care, or worse is they know they won't have to worry about it by the time it comes back around.
Yeah.
Like, there's another Pratchett quote, the problem with revolutions is they always come back around again. And I run into this every time I get to that passage. Every time I get there is because that's one of the other themes of Small Gods is belief in something. Not
Mm-hmm.
belief in your religion per se, but belief in a thing because it is something worth being believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there are like so many people in that book are fighting over their ideology,
Mm-hmm.
or it's like, no, my way is the right way, or
Mm-hmm.
because of my ideology we have to do this, we have to play these games. And it's just, well, but you wouldn't have to do this if you all just didn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. Why can't we just not do this?
Yeah.
And I still don't know how to square that with reality. It's
Yeah, it does always seem to be that the people who want to do the thing seem to often be the loudest voices and to get their way, and then find out that the thing wasn't as easy as they thought it was going to be.
yeah, that's sort of why I like going back to T. Lawrence is like,
Mm-hmm.
I like, at least in his writing,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't seem to be pushing for, I mean, he's ideological,
Mm-hmm.
who isn't, but he doesn't seem to be in it for the ideology.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact passage, but there's the thing about how he doesn't sell his friends' dignity
Mm-hmm.
so that they could all be wealthy. Something about him being it's something about him being the his friends being made to circus monkeys, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point I think that Small Gods tries to make, is that you have to meet people where they are, and
Mm-hmm.
if you are setting out to help people, you need to help them first and worry about their soul second.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wrestling with the fact that you may be motivated
Mm-hmm.
separately from what needs to be done, and they may even
Yeah.
be at cross purposes with each other.
Yeah, which I guess takes us back to Jingo, because the reason that Vimes and Carrot get on a boat and head to Clutch is nothing to do with it's tangentially to do with the island, but
Yeah,
Vimes
yeah,
is
no,
pursuing a
it's
criminal and, you know.
a hot pursuit,
Mm-hmm.
time-honored tradition.
And it sort of accidentally kind of kicks off the war, but also not. And so they go racing off to chase a criminal and also rescue Angua, who very rarely needs rescuing. But that also precipitates the fleet heading towards Clutch, which actually prevents the Clutchian fleet heading for Ang, but also allows for a bit of a Gallipoli analogy, which is always fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, just
Where should we land?
Yeah, they won't expect us to land in the incredibly stupid place because nobody would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I guess plays into the double bluff thing Ahmed has going on, but
Yeah.
because they're morons, it doesn't work.
Yeah. And they're known to be morons as well, which is...
Yeah. Once they get to Clatch, I think is one of my favorite, like, let's start piling up the literary references. Specifically because you've got General Tacticus, who is broadly, I think the best analogy is sort of Sun Tzu. But also there's like things in there that are, it's like, oh, that's definitely Lawrence, or we're doing Ozymandias now.
Yeah, because Carrot definitely does a bit of a Lawrence analogy in that he sort of wears the robes, comfortably and whatever.
Oh, absolutely.
I roll, but also that's already been set up that Carrot does that wherever he is. So,
And I have to say this is one of my favorite books for Carrot, because he's not, like, he doesn't get nearly as much of a main character thing going on here.
Yeah.
And I think that works really well because as part of the narrative, why couldn't, this is all so very stupid, why can't we just not do this, is there's no place for a genuinely good person in this, because there's, what would they do?
Yeah.
And I think that helps. I think that vibe helps Carrot be a fit better as a character, because it's like he's there, and he's along, but he's no longer this massive lead weight in reality, because reality doesn't currently matter.
Yeah. Yeah, as you said, there's also Sun Tzu, and such a great way of depicting it. Like, it is just Fail Son's guide to not fucking up.
Yes. What is it? If your enemy is willing to die for his country, this means you and he have the same goal in mind.
Yeah.
If your enemy is within an impenetrable fortress, see that he remains there. And yeah, and that makes me think of the interpretation of Sun Tzu as not, some foundational, brilliant thinker of here are things you need to do in war, but more of, I'm so tired of you idiots constantly screwing up this basic stuff, so I'm putting it all in a book for you.
Yeah. It's good. And of course, you can't have a desert without two vast and trunkless legs of stone. So, you just have to have Ozymandias in there.
Yeah.
Although I do rather like that the wind changed, and it became a desert thing as well, which does happen.
Yes. I really like that we get, once we're in the desert, especially once we're talking to Ahmed, is he talked about how the realities of him being, for lack of a better term, a policeman, and the realities of what he has to do to make it work out there, living on the edges. And it doesn't make him a bad person that he has to do bad things, and he has a capital R reputation, because that's what makes him effective.
Yeah.
And I think in the hands of a worse writer, this would be our armed forces keep us safe. They do what they have to for America and her interests. Whereas for Ahmed, it's more, this must be done because this is the only way I can do it.
Yeah.
And he fully recognizes that it's not glamorous, that it's not even good, but it is what must be done.
Yeah.
It's the Lawrence quote that they do near the end of the book is like with the hot coal.
Yeah.
Is the trick is to not mind that it hurts.
Yeah. Which is intense. And
just
actually kind of foolish. It's funny, I was actually talking to Kelly on Canuck is a Slur recently about putting on a brave face in different circumstances when that can be counterintuitive. But I guess if you're trying to look like a badass, then yeah, not minding that it hurts is kind of still the way it's set up to do it.
Yeah, like what's nice is that it's backwards because that quote, at least in Lawrence of Arabia, is one of the first lines of the movie. Well, one of the first lines of Lawrence's in the movie. And here it is showing up at the very end of the book after it's all over, after it's just like, well, we're playing our football match with lots of penalties, and we're trying to figure out how everyone's going home. And I think it's a great, as an aside, that ending scene is a great example of just the liminality of, well, we were all here, the thing happened, and it didn't go the way we went. But we're still here. What now?
Yeah.
And I think it does a good job of, like, setting the tone for the reader, not just as a narrative element, but I should say as a narrative element. But not just that, but also just as, like, no, this is what happens. The war ends, and you've got a bunch of guys now.
Yeah, and then they're going to go back, okay, now what do we do? I think there's also quite a lot of really good stuff in the story about the wisdom or otherwise of crowds. To quote, odd thing, ain't it? You meet people one at a time, they seem decent, they got brains that work, and then they get together and you hear the voice of the people, and it snarls. End quote. Unfortunately, crowds do be like that sometimes. Although sometimes not, which is nice.
Yeah. I think it's a great observation on the idea that it's like, we all wish that we would listen to the people more, but then when we are faced with the people, sometimes we don't like it. And they are often wrong.
Yeah.
Or worse is wrong because they have been misled.
Yes, that's exactly where I was about to go, because, there are so many instances at the moment where the people keep talking about migration as this big issue, but it's only this big issue because the media and the people in power kept going on and on and on about migration being the big issue. And so we've gone, oh, okay, I guess that's the big issue then. Obviously, it is more complicated than that, or anti-vax stuff, or various other things like that,
Yeah, and this is like, I think this book explicitly describes Nabi and Colon as the voice of the man on the street. I can't remember if it's this book, but Fred Colon is once described as having got his education from, what is it, The Man in the Pub? Something like that.
Yeah, hang on, I think I've got it here. To quote, Sergeant Colon had had a broad education. He'd been to the school of my dad always said, the college of it stands to reason, and was now a postgraduate student at the University of what some bloke in the pub told me.
Yeah, yes. When he and Nabi first show up, it's literally Fred trying to do circular logic about Clatchians being bad. It's Nabi keeps asking these questions, and you can never be quite sure if Nabi means these things he's saying or he's genuinely asking.
I do like it, because I've always thought Nobby's a little bit smarter than he lets on. Possibly a lot smarter than he lets on. And I think that scene definitely does it. Yeah. And, he starts off telling Nobby that the Clatchians will run away at the first taste of cold steel. And then, a few sort of terrible stereotypes later, he sort of circles back around and he's like, oh, and they're just like violent, bloodthirsty people fighting each other all the time. And Nobby's like, but how does the cold steel fit in?
Yeah, and I don't think Nobby is asking those questions rhetorically.
No.
I think Nobby is more intelligent than he necessarily lets on, because he often asks the right question,
Mm-hmm.
but not because he's he doesn't ask these questions rhetorically like you would as some kind of strategy. He's asking them because he legitimately wants an answer.
Yeah.
And the problem is oftentimes he gets one.
Yeah.
Uh,
and then he also recognizes that he gets the answer, but the answers don't match up.
Yeah, it's...
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, that has the payoff at the end when, I forget which prince it is, but one of his advisors is like, oh yes, they think that we'll run away at the taste of cold steel. And...
Oh, yeah, he...
the prince is like, huh, interesting.
Could you please fetch me some cold steel?
And he quite literally tastes it and is like, no, not feeling an urge to run away.
Yeah, just the sort of default underlying racism. I do like the constant joke of the Clatchians have had this technology or these concepts for literally generations, and you're pretending like they're new.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite, little jabs at the typical imperial viewpoint, is we are superior in all ways. It's like, what do you mean? And it's not hugely acknowledged, but for example, one of the Clatchian generals has a telescope that his grandfather gave him, and they have just been invented in Ankh-Morpork.
Yeah. I mean, I guess sometimes that can be considered as sort of tiptoeing into the Orientalism of, look at this ancient wisdom, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that's what Pratchett's doing. But,
no.
yeah.
There isn't. I don't think it comes across as the ancient wisdom of the Clatchians. It's just it's more like it definitely gets played more as, oh, the Ankh are all morons because they think they're better. They think they're so far ahead.
Yeah. I've just found another quote. Sets that up quite well. Why are our people going out there? Said Mr. Boggis of the Thieves Guild. Because they are showing a brisk pioneering spirit and seeking wealth and additional wealth in a new land, said Lord Vetinari. What's in it for the Clatchians? Said Lord Downey. Oh, they've gone out there because they are a bunch of unprincipled opportunists always ready to grab something for nothing, said Lord Vetinari. A masterful summation, if I may say so, my lord, said Mr. Burley. The patrician looked down again at his notes. Oh, I do beg your pardon. I seem to have read those last two sentences in the wrong order.
Yeah, and nobody else in the council except for Vimes picks up on it. And I think he does a good job establishing the fact that it's not because the council's too dumb, it's because everyone on the council is too occupied with their angle to bother listening to what Vetinari. I think this is the book where we get Rust, the description of Rust literally actively rewriting reality when he hears things that he doesn't like, because he's, as a noble, that's something that he's just been able to do.
Yeah. This cannot be possibly being said to me, therefore it isn't, therefore I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah, I think that was definitely weird for me, because that's not an archetype I was ever used to, as this somebody who is born into this idea of station.
Yeah. And also just some weird ideas about battle. There's a line in there about some people think that the sign of a good war is a lot of fatalities, and if they're on the opponent's side, that's just a nice bonus.
Yes, like this is like they're literally setting up for charge of the Light Brigade.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is then, of course, when Vimes comes back in with General Tacticus's book, and it's like, to quote, in fact, the general has this to say about ensuring against defeat when outnumbered, outweaponed, and outpositioned. It is, he turned the page, don't have a battle. End quote.
Yes. Yeah, just I love all the little tidbits that this has to deliver. Like the little interludes we get on Leshp.
Yeah.
Of just the absolutely stupid, petty fighting over this island that nobody even knew existed before.
Yeah.
This idea that it's worth so much that they are willing to be miserable for it. And, you know, I think that's part of the whole Falklands thing.
Yeah.
Which I didn't, until I learned about the Falklands War, I didn't realize that that's what it was aping. You know, it's just like, nobody cares. You're not really producing, like, your existence is not economically justified by being here. But you are still here because some nebulous concept of it being your country's.
Yeah. We might go to war to keep some damn island that's only useful in case we have to go to war, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing this book does that, especially as an American these days, the fantasy is arrest the ruler.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Which, like, we even sort of have got that, you know, like we, it's like, well, we got a conviction, you know, we got these charges, but it doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I do like that he does actually arrest Vetinari.
Yeah.
That does actually happen. It doesn't matter in the end, but it at least happens. You know. And someday
I don't you know, now that you say it, I think it does matter, if only symbolically.
Yes.
That Vimes, sure, it doesn't, like, there are no consequences to it, but to say that it doesn't matter is to miss that
it does. It definitely does matter. It just, because of the overall resolution of the story, it, in the longer term, doesn't have consequences for Vetinari. But there's a moment where Vimes says, sometimes I dream that we could deal with the big crimes, that we could make a law for countries and not just for people, which...
Yeah.
Same. I used to think we had that. I don't think that so much anymore.
Well, you know, radical anarchist Mark Carney. I think this is the Discworld book I find myself going back to the most. It's got the archetype of things that I find fascinating about it. Like, all of the others have a much clearer central story, or there's something to them which makes them a little, maybe better defined is the wrong term, but it's where I'm gonna it's what I'm gonna call it. Because Jingo, almost by its nature, has to be a little nuts.
Yeah.
You know, there's plot happening.
Yeah.
And things follow one another, but it's not like, you know, there's this big mystery, you know.
Yeah.
Who shot the prince? Sure, but it doesn't matter in the face of everything else.
Yeah. And it's sort of, it's chaos and disorienting and lots of random stuff happening in different directions, because that's war. And I think it one of the less smoothly satisfying arcs, and you kind of know how it's going to resolve fairly early on. I guess spoiler alert again if you haven't read it. The reason that the island magically appears is that there's a whole bunch of gas under it, and eventually that escapes and it sinks again. And so they have a peace treaty over somewhere that doesn't exist, so they can't ratify it. So we all live happily ever after, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's fitting that it's a sulfur bubble that makes the island rise, because Nobby and Cullen comment on it smelling like a fart, and it's like we've literally, you can read that as they're literally doing a war over a fart of an island.
Yeah.
Which just, what a great concept.
And there's all sorts of other chaos that happens around it because they're going to war over a fart of an island.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes back around to it, the idea of Jingo is all about the stories we tell ourselves about war. That we need this island with the tactical advantage, that the Klatchians will run away at the taste of cold steel, that don't have these technological things like telescopes. Oh no, I inherited it from my grandfather. You know, there's a lot of stories that people tell themselves about war that often are not grounded in reality, and often then lead to fuck-ups like, oh, you know, we'll land in the stupid place because they won't expect us to do that. Who needs water in the desert? Little things like that. Are there any concluding things you want to pull together about Seven Pillars or stories?
I have not yet reached the end of Seven Pillars. It is remarkably dense, and I am not the fastest reader. But it is, it's, yeah, like, you know, the logistics of it all, just, we want to tell these stories of the glory of the capture, victory. You know, we won it, it's ours. To this day, the British presence on the Falklands costs an enormous amount of money, but the point is the prestige, right?
Yeah.
It's to say that we did it. I think that the interpretation Jingo takes away is, and presents you with at the end, is this sort of hollow feeling of, yeah, sure, you did it, but what did you gain? Was it, rather than, I think in another book, this would be presented as, well, was it all worth it? And in this book, it asks the same question, but it's, well, yeah, but was it really all worth it?
Yeah.
I think that little tone shift of clearly decrying the idea, it's like, well, people died, things happened, and we're just back to normal.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems to, without preaching it at you, it seems to try to get to you that, no, this was not worth it.
Yeah. You know, I think Veterinary says at one point, like, how glorious would have been the battles that they never had to fight. But obviously there were some battles and there were some losses, and they weren't worth it. And the risk that Veterinary took to sign a peace treaty with all these ostensible, you know, concessions to be ratified on Leshp, knowing full well that by the time it comes to be ratified, there is no such island.
Yeah, I mean, and God, and not to get too much deeper into this, but like, that's a thing Lawrence did, right? Is he was sort of trying to both work for the Arabs and the Empire, and by trying to capture enough territory that's to go, look, the Arabs have this control, we should give them a state, and in the end, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, in the end, it kind of doesn't matter. So, slightly depressing line to end on. Kind of brings me back to the two vast and trunkless legs of sand. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Yeah, I just think of the Hijaz Railway in the desert.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's the one that if you've seen the movie, that it's the
Mhm.
one they're constantly attacking but not actually destroying,
Oh, okay.
and it's still there. You
Hmm.
can go see you can go see Lawrence train wrecks, I think, if they're not buried, and that's our chunks of stone in the desert for
Mhm.
this thing that used to unify people in the region that never got rebuilt.
Huh. Cool. But this has been a very fun chat. Any last thoughts?
No, just nothing really, just the idea that all these complicated things didn't need to be so,
Yeah.
but only if you hadn't complicated them to begin with.
Yeah. And I think that the complicating is often the stories that people tell. You know, it really didn't need to be this complicated, but because of all these stories we tell ourselves about war and valor and tactical advantage, things got complicated and didn't have to be like that. Well, thank you, Melody. This has been a great chat. I really appreciate your time. And if people want to find you, don't. Is that pretty much the message? Or
Pretty much, yeah.
yeah, but you can always connect with the show at ourstories.bluesky.social or ourstoriesanourselves@gmail.com. So thanks for listening. Thank you again, Melody, and until next time, write your own story.